So the topic that was assigned to me was preparing for the aftermath of COVID-19. It's not yet the aftermath because this morning I read that there are some Asian countries right now that are having a surge of COVID again, and they're looking at lockdowns as their usual, which is as a practice that was done last year when we had. So what's in, what's out? This is something that we have to take a look at and take maybe what's this? Find out how we can be in or how to make the out something that is in or in relevant still for the days that we have. So yesterday I had a very nice virtual social gathering with friends who share the same passion. And this was in honor of one particular person, Dr. Pablo, who celebrated his 92nd birthday. In the past, we were all coming together in one restaurant and we would take a look at how each one has been, etc. It was always a happy occasion. And I didn't want to let go of that nice celebratory practice that we had in the past. And so what I did was I coordinated through the help of Dr. Gatchalian. She said that why don't we have a Zoom party for Dr. Pablo? And I said, what is a Zoom party if we do not have food? So I coordinated for food to be delivered. And one of our members is all the way in Baliwag, Bulacan. And I couldn't get anyone who would deliver food to all the way to Bulacan. So she said that the only way that she gets packages is through LBC. And how do you put in LBC maybe cake or something? And I said, no, that won't do it. So I was able to make arrangements for a deli kit that I sent to her that was not so challenging to send. And so I sent it to her last Wednesday. But for the others, I kept it a secret. I didn't tell them. But what happened was all of them were rejecting the Grab delivery. And I said, why? Why are you rejecting? And my daughter who had made the arrangements, Mama, your friends don't want to accept the food. So I had to message them. I had to call them. Please accept because this is your birthday gift for this year. And as we celebrate, so what kind of a party do we have if you don't have food in it? And Filipinos, we always have food as a center of any celebration. And so some of us were eating, some of us were drinking, and Dr. Pablo had to blow his candle, and we all celebrated that. So you've gone, maybe your emotions have gone from being very happy. Maybe you were very ecstatic that there were no classes to be held. Maybe you are so sad right now because of the many online courses. Maybe a little bit surprised that, oh, why is my teacher requiring me to do so many requirements for this particular subject? And and you're some of you might be frustrated because the things are not happening as you want it to happen. And so this makes emotions is really part of the transition. In psychology, they have like you have not accepted the fact that we have moved. There would be denial, then finally accept, angry, and then you become more accepting of the situation. So I pick up one. Education is the quote from Nelson Mandela. This is something that really holds very dear to me, having spent a lot of years in academia. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And I use education not as somebody who is just going to school. In fact, if you take a look at education, you can actually get it formally. You go to a school, informally, maybe learn it from somebody or get some certificates, or non-formal. You don't value any certificates, but you just know how to do it. And so education is used to encompass all the forms of learning that happens as you go from day one to day two. And I say that because if you learn something today, then you're able to use it in the next phase of your life. So my talking points would include changes in industry, education, and training. I want to make sure that we all value that because that is how we move forward. History, her story, and lessons learned. This is where I'll share what I've been doing. And I'd like to share also something about TIBFI so that you get to know where I'm coming from and moving forward. So what changes in the industry have we done? During the recent National Economic Recovery Strategy Summit, there were presentations made by several people, including this NEDA Assistant Secretary, and they were saying that more firms were operating but largely at below capacity due to financial constraints. If you can see that only a few were open in April. In July, 55% open. In November, 9%. But I think this time, July, we have more open enterprises already. But you see also that there are quite a number who temporarily shut down because they was in compliance with the IATF, and some that were temporary in nature. But as you move from March last year all the way to November, you find a significant number of enterprises who have decided to permanently close shop. And so what does that mean? It means that a lot of people now are looking for work. Some enterprises are looking for other types of businesses to operate maybe, or maybe there's some frustration on their part because based on their projection, 2020 was going to be a banner year, and only to find out that they would have what, less than 10% of what they projected. If take a look at employment adjustments relative to previous years, there were quite a number of people who were laid off, some who actually had reduced hours, some who actually had reduced wages, but the top would be laid off and reduced hours. And if your parents are involved, or maybe you, some of you are actually working students, or some of you are teachers who may not have the full load right now, be more understanding. There's some parents who put their, especially if you're in private, there's tuition to be paid. And so education is thought to be some luxury item unless you are staying in a state university where there is no tuition to talk of. Unemployment rate has eased to 8.8%. Underemployment remains elevated. So, I was talking, we had a meeting recently in the HRAP board, and we noted that there were quite a lot of innovations that were done with their workforce. There were some that instead of reporting for 40 hours, they were just reporting for 20 hours, or some that were doing tasks, multifunctions. They were chefs or they were cooks, but now are actually working on also delivering food to the rooms. Or if you're in front office, you might also be doing housekeeping activities. And so this thing is now happening right now in the industry that we have. In that same event, we had an ADB speaker who thought of tourism recovery strategies and took a look at what strategies were employed in various countries. So there is phase one, survival mode. Phase two, which is preparing for the reopening. Phase three is resilient tourism recovery. And where are we right now? Take a look at March 2020. Many, if not most, were on lockdown. However, sometime June, they realized that they needed more facilities for quarantine accommodation, especially for tourists, not tourists, for those who were coming back, because the people who were allowed to come back were not allowed to go directly to their place. They had to stay in isolation for 14 days to make sure that they were not bringing any virus with them. So there were limited operations. And then you have increased capacity in September 2020 because depending on the quarantine level you have, if you start with MCQ, MECQ, ECQ, so many letters. I'm confused actually right now. So every time that there is a change in the protocol, we have the operators of tourism enterprises actually come to them. What does this mean? How will it impact us, etc., etc. Finally, November 20, again, increased business and capacity. Now the numbers either, let's say, you can only have like 20% of your workforce coming in or guests coming in. So how does that work for your workforce, etc. And July 2021, it's still the same because we're not still there. So that's why when you said that post-COVID or post-pandemic, this is not yet post-pandemic because we are still in transition. Maybe the new normal is something that's going to happen not this year, next year, or maybe 2023 still. So I just got this information. I subscribed to this uh, uh, provider, and they gave us no, usual uh, updates on what's happening for the week ending July 24. uh, they noted that the Philippines is partially locked down. So there are yes, the other day, when was that? 2 days ago, I attended a webinar and they were talking about Region 4A that would have a Calabarzon gateway. Baguio also, that they're opening some of the regions right now to tourists, because domestic tourism is the way to go. But some are actually very high, and so they are still on lockdown. For inbound travel restrictions, there are visa restrictions. We still are not accepting tourists. We are accepting only for visa, for those who are coming in for business. But I think now they have relaxed the rule as well. Outbound travel, our friend, Dr. June and I, we have a friend who owns Raja Travel Corporation. And I think last month, she traveled to Mexico and then went to the US. And so that is an allowed practice right now. People can travel out. If you take a look at the numbers, the Philippines is the second highest. So next to Indonesia in terms of number of cases and deaths. Can you imagine 2.2 million versus the Philippines 1.4 million, and we're second also in deaths as compared to Indonesia. In terms of vaccination, where is the Philippines right now? The Philippines has quite a number of doses already that we have secured. It is able to cover around 74% of the total population. But at the moment, only 2.46% is fully vaccinated. If you've read the World Health Organization announcement that they would require at least 85% of the total population before a country should consider going back to normal, we are still very far, far away from reaching that 85% herd immunity. And I read in the papers again that there were some LGUs that had to close their vaccination centers because they did not have enough doses anymore. So if you take a look, we are the second lowest in terms of vaccination. Vietnam is 0.22, and the next, oh, we're not the second anymore. There's third already. Myanmar is second, but we are the third already in terms of vaccination. So if you ask yourself how soon can I go, take a look in your own home. If there are 5 members of in your home and you say that only one is fully vaccinated, that's a 25% vaccination rate that you have in your household. So that means to say you have not reached yet herd immunity in that place. Another material that came out is the Philippine Travel Survey Report, Insights on the Filipino Travelers' Sentiments of the New Normal. This was done by DOT and Guide to the Philippines, as well as the Asian Institute of Management. They had two outtakes of the survey. They had one in June and another one in December. And what were some of the findings that came out? Domestic leisure travel will lead the recovery of the Philippine tourism. And that is Secretary Berna's battle cry right now. Domestic tourism, we have to open at least for those that are within or it says immediately outside your perimeter if they're allowed to travel. You know, people are already tired. They call vengeance travel. People are raring to travel already outside of their home. Majority of travelers expect a reduction of their income and travel budget. As I mentioned in the nurse summit, there were some findings about workers who were laid off, workers who are underemployed right now. And so income is going to go, if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you have to satisfy first your basic needs. And what would basic needs uh, uh, amount to? You have food, shelter, travel is something up there which is not yet found within the budget of most families. Health and safety remains a primary concern of travelers. So how many of you have face masks? You know, it was like a month ago, it was very confusing because One person said now the face shield can go, but you still have to wear the face mask. In a couple of days, there was another announcement that you still have to wear the face shield. It's very confusing, and so you've got to make sure that you are up to date with the health protocols that you need to follow. So just make sure that you're aware of that. Travelers prefer reduced contact activities once leisure restrictions are lifted. So, this would be activities that would be held outside, out in the open air. And so maybe this is a good time for those who are looking at products to sell and services. Look for products that you would not be in the small places, but could be out in the open air. Travelers prefer online and digital channels for convenience and reduced contact. You don't want to hold somebody else's money. When you go for your vaccination, one of the things you have to bring is a pencil, a ball pen, so that you don't borrow somebody else's ball pen. In fact, in many of the establishments, they have a QR code now that for you to enter a safe pass, you can actually just open the QR code and fill in your contact details, and you can easily answer because you can easily enter that particular enterprise. And travelers plan to travel close to home. So what does that mean? If I'm in NCR, what would be the areas that I would go? It would be region 4 maybe in the south, and region 3 in the north. And these are the places that are going to be something that I would be willing to visit right now. But the farthest I've been to Makati only since March, but I've not really gone out, not taken any of the tollways recently. In the December, sorry, it's not, December results, in the May-December respondents, there were many were not the same respondents, but they still confirm that the new findings say that they will still travel close to home. And the behavior is common as preferred among travelers as in the previous presentation that I made. In the NCR, which enjoyed business travel, local tourism and staycators will take the lead. So what does this mean? It means that, a lot of people are working from home, but they may not have the space at home. And so some hotels are opening their doors to this. They are also creating staycation packages where, you just want to have a different view. And so you are looking at something outside of the home. Staycators are good cash generators, but the establishment cannot overlap between two programs. So you cannot be a quarantine facility, but at the same time offer products and services for staycators. This discussion we had lengthily at the HRAP. They say, you can just designate the elevator that's going to be used by quarantine and et cetera, et cetera. But the DOT was really very strict about it. You cannot be providers for both types of businesses. So where does that bring us? I took a look at some of materials that are available on the website, and the future of work and skills. This is something that was common with the previous speaker. What are some of the skills that are needed? You need to make sure that you have customer focus. I'm very happy that tourism and hospitality really cannot be replaced by a robot. We have to make sure that we know the requirements of our customers. You can only use artificial intelligence to some point, but at some point you'll have to really talk with somebody live. Creativity and innovation is something that's going to be strong also in the competencies that you will need. Digital and IT will something be also needed. Another article actually identified what are the top 10 positions that you will have post-pandemic. Number one would be online travel agent. Number two would be travel insurance and salesperson. Travel insurance because it's COVID a part of your insurance right now, and people are really, because of the expense. We just lost a very dear member of the tourism sector. She's been there for 35 years, and we heard that she spent 2.5 months in the hospital, and she unfortunately she passed away. But her family now is grappling with a 3 million hospitalization expense, and so you've got to make sure that you're able to do that. The new age cabin crew, when planes started flying out, you saw flight attendants without wearing their very beautiful uniforms, but you couldn't see them because they were covered in PPEs as well as they were covered with a mask. And so what would be the new requirements of cabin crew? Influencer, marketer, and so on. So I'll be giving you the links for this materials that I got. Another material I got would be 10 jobs in travel and tourism that will be big in 2021 and beyond. Again, you have data analysts and scientists, artificial intelligence and machine learning specialists, and robotics engineers. I was in a hotel. I don't know if it was in Malaysia or someplace where they had a robot that was just going around the lobby, and it was nice to look at. It was good conversation for maybe 1 minute, but after a while, you're looking for somebody with face to face who can smile with you, etc. And it's only nice for the first few seconds, but you'll have to in tourism. I think you'll have to still rely on people who will be working there. The future of jobs report by the World Economic Forum, there would be jobs that would be removed, but there would be new jobs that will be created. But job creation is slow while job destruction accelerates. What does this mean? It means that now, instead of having, maybe in some companies you don't have specialists anymore. You'll have generalists who will be able to do what jobs one, two, three, other than before when you were doing separately one separate task for number two and so on. But there will be new jobs that will be coming out as well. So I also attended or moderated a panel discussion, making the Filipino globally competitive and how do we get there. And we had a very nice discussion with academicians, as well as with people from industry, as well as from government. And these were some of the highlights that they were asking. They said it is now a given that you need to be proficient in English and be digitally transformed. Why English? Because even if you're going to be working here in the Philippines, you may have colleagues who are actually from Mindanao or from the north, and your words may be the same but may mean differently. Like for example, if you're from the Visayas, is it patis that is also equivalent to toyo, or the langgam, which is equivalent to the bird, or yung mapintas, which is equivalent to maganda? And so these words may mean differently, but have the same words. So English is maybe what the global language now of the global citizen right now, especially that you're inviting speakers from all the way to Malaysia, or maybe having some conversations with people outside of the Philippines. A second is resiliency and adaptability. What does this mean? It means that given that the situation is different right now, how do you move forward? And you've got to make sure that you're able to adapt and maybe modify some of the processes that you have right now. Creativity and analytical skills would be something that is also required, because you've got to think out of the box, think of how you're able to modify a certain process with following the maybe the protocols that are given by the IATF. During our discussion in the HRAP, one of the general managers actually mentioned, because they were allowing movie houses to open at one time in the Philippines. I don't know what particular quarantine level it was. And then hotels would have quite a number of function rooms that were not being used because there were no events that were being planned. And so this general manager had a bright idea of saying, why don't I just simply convert one of my function room to be a movie house? And there was a big debate. And he said, and finally he said he let go of that idea, because again, you'll have to contend with getting permits, capacity levels, etc. And so, there are some nice ideas, but if you throw it out there might be some repercussions. And so it's nice to also look at what would be the pluses and minuses of your ideas. There has to be resourcefulness as well as initiative. You don't just simply present a problem. The best thing that you can do is, if you have a problem, if you have a situation, in fact, in some enterprises, they don't call it problems anymore. They call them situations. And you, as somebody who is maybe a process owner of that particular situation, you may want to present it to your upline and say, we have this situation and this is my suggestion. You don't just simply leave it, this is the situation, this is the problem. You've got to make sure you go forward and also think of ideas on how to resolve that particular area. Lifelong learning. LLL. This is something that I learned in CHED when there was discussion on lifelong learning, and said, what is LLL? In the presentation of one speaker. And they said that this is now the acronym for lifelong learning. Just because you completed your degree, completed a certificate, and that's it. You simply say, oh, this is done. You can have as many certificates, micro credentials that are going to be very valuable when you actually start looking for work or maybe start your own business as well. So the expectation that we have might not be far, might be very far from the reality, and so you have to make sure that you're able to resolve that. What changes in the education and training do we have right now? The Philippine Qualifications framework is something that is impacted education right now, because there's an additional 2 years that our students will stay in basic education. I believe many, if not all of you, are actually uh, outcomes of the 12-year program that we have. And after this, you can actually go to either technical vocational training or higher education. So what do we have here that will impact on tourism? There is in the among the various tracks, the technical vocational livelihood track in secondary education that has tourism components there. And you also have qualifications in TESDA, which are tourism in the tourism sector. And we also have the program in bachelor's, BS, master's, as well as PhD that are in tourism and management. And tourism and hospitality. And what did we find out? That there are gaps. There are expectations that when you go from secondary to TESDA, you've done that already in higher education. You've already a certificate, but it's not being credited. And so there is something that is being done right now. So there is a convergence that is happening right now. I'll be telling you about that later on. So what is something that has happened also in the ASEAN region, there is what we call the mutual recognition arrangements for several programs already. You have in electronics, engineering, nursing, surveying, dentistry, medicine, and accountancy, as well as tourism. But what sets us different? The regulatory arm that will issue the licenses or the certificates is PRC for the 7 programs, whereas for tourism, they've been doing this already for a long time. This is going to be by TESDA. And TESDA is something that has been doing it even before the MRA was implemented in 2012. So in the implementation of the ASEAN MRA on tourism professionals, there were 3. All countries had to identify their NTO, their TPCB, as well as their NTPB. And the NTO is a National Tourism Organization. Obviously, this is the Department of Tourism. The TPCB, or the Tourism Professional Certification Board, which is TESDA, and they've been doing that already. And NTPB, or the National Tourism Professional Board, which is TIPFI, we have been existing for 40 years, and we are composed of, we represent industry, academe, government. Our members are all stakeholders of the tourism industry. And so we have been submitted to the ASEAN Secretariat as the representatives in the implementation in the Philippines. Other countries had to identify their agencies as well. In some countries, they only have one agency that's doing all the 3 tasks or functions. In some, they have 2, but in the Philippines, there are 3. And so a lot of work we are doing right now with DOT, TESDA, and TIPFI. So the ASEAN Tourism Professional Registration System, the website is actually here, actually has several things that you can do. You can actually go to the website and you will see MRA portal. In that MRA portal, you will see that there are several key materials that you can actually download. And I will be giving you later on a different slide what you can download in this material. There are several divisions, primary divisions, hotel services at the moment, hotel services and travel services. Uh, an upcoming labor division is MICE. And you have also the secondary labor division with number of job titles, which I've included in parentheses on the side as well. So this is, you have at the end of the ASEAN MRA, you have 242, we call them ASEAN Common Competency Standards for Tourism Professional, which have been benchmarked with all the ASEAN member states. All 10 countries have agreed that these are the common competencies for a particular job title. There There is also a common ASEAN tourism curriculum, which is something like this. You package all the competencies together. And the toolboxes, you'll have toolboxes like the assessor's manual. You also have a PowerPoint presentation. You also have a trainer's guide, and you have a trainee manual. And you can all get this in the ASEAN ATPRS website. Just to show you the qualifications that we have in the ASEAN, you have Certificate 2, which is the lowest, which is equivalent to the NC2 that we have here in the Philippines. Certificate 3, Certificate 4, Diploma, and Advanced Diploma. The 5 levels that you have in ASEAN are not comparable, by the way, to the Philippine qualification framework that we have, where we have 8 levels, but we're trying to find a common denominator, and that is the job that is being done right now by another committee, which is known as the ASEAN Qualification Referencing Framework, which is now handling the commonalities of these programs. So you can also use the same website of the ATPRS to actually register, and you can actually register or do have access already to some of the items that are only for members exclusively. The keywords here are for verification and matchmaking. You assess and certify. So the Tourism Professional Certification Board will actually, when there is a registration, they will verify if there is really on record the national certificate number that you uploaded as part of the registration process. For the tourism industry employer, the National Tourism Professional Board will actually also certify if you're SEC, if you're DTI registered, and so that you can access this particular matchmaking site, because then you put in all the job openings that you have in your particular enterprise. Who can register? Those who are tourism professionals, you can register as long as you are registered with TESDA. And I believe that there are a lot of holders now of certificates in this audience. You also can register if you are a trainer and assessor with from the ASEAN or the TESDA. If you're a tourism enterprise, if you're accredited with DOT, and if you're a training institution, either with DepEd, TESDA, and CHED, you can actually register. If you want to know more about this, you can go to the website. There are several videos that you can watch. One of the videos here would be to assist you in the registration process. This is a national certificate, and what's unique about this is that in the center, there is a sentence that says, in compliance with the ASEAN Mutual Recognition Arrangement on Tourism Profession. If your national certificate doesn't have that, that means to say your qualification has not yet been aligned with the ASEAN MRA on TP. So how has the world changed? If you're in one tiny province in the Philippines, right now, the whole Philippines is under a pandemic. The whole ASEAN is also under some kind of pandemic. The whole world is actually under pandemic. That's why it's called pandemic, because it's worldwide. And so how does it impact us? It impacts us right now because the new classroom is not limited to one location in one province or in one city. Now the new classroom is actually the world. And I'm very happy if we have speakers from different parts of the world who are able to come to our classroom. Never in your wildest dream would you have that possible if you were still pre-COVID, because they have to actually travel here. You know, in a click of a button, you have a foreign speaker already in your midst. Second is the new workplace. Doesn't mean that your workplace will be actually something that is mortar and cement in a particular destination. You can actually be working from home already, from the same place that you actually slept or are eating with your family. So the workplace can be varied already. It can be big. It can be something that is several kilometers away, or it can be in your destination, right, in your place right now. You can also be working not only here in the Philippines, but you can also be working outside of the Philippines, but still staying here in the Philippines in your own home. So I'd like to share my history, her story. my word, my life, I was born in 1959, and I finished my bachelor's degree in 1981, and it has taken me to a wide range of jobs. I was initially a faculty member. When I graduated, I was invited to be a faculty member of our college in UP, College of Home Economics. Then I moved to at a quasi-government institution, the PhilFos, as a liaison officer. And then I flew with Cathay Pacific. And then I came home because I got married and started working again with UP. We opened our own business as well. And then I joined the CCA, the Center for Culinary Arts Manila, as a school director. Then, during all, maybe in some of this work that I was doing, I was writing cookbooks. I was helping test the right training regulations, and I just published a new book on multicultural diversity with the Rex Publishing Company. You can also, I'm sorry, I also joined Qatar Airways as a cabin services line instructor, where we were training flight attendants who were in first class with the new service delivery, or for those who were upgraded from business class to first class. And so it was a very interesting, I was based in Qatar, and it was very interesting to work in that. And then finally I came back, I joined LPU, and then recently I retired, but I'm still on the go because I'm still working with the Philippine Quality Awards with DTI as an assessor. I'm still a member together with June, Dr. June, as a member of the which is the Technical Committee for Tourism and Hospitality Management, working with TESDA, reviewing the training regulation with DOT, with TIBFI, and so on. So world doesn't stop. So what lessons did I learn? Every time that you finish a year level, whether it is high school, grade school, college, etc., there is what we call a commencement exercise. And people think that is the end of life, the end of your learning, but it is not true, because it is just a beginning, because you have to do constantly train, you have to do lifelong learning. Even if you join a particular company, you'll have an orientation program where you have to learn about the new. So don't think that when you do a commencement exercise, that is the end. That is not true. Attitude is the most important element in a competency. You have knowledge, attitude, behavior, and sometimes they even put values, but attitude. What good is, having this stock knowledge, but if you have a lousy attitude, you cannot work in a team, you cannot be on time, you cannot be, there are a lot of things, but attitude is the defining which is element whether you get a job or not. Technology level, you need updating constantly, just like your phone. In 2 years, there will be a new model and you've got to upgrade it. And same thing with your technology. You've got to constantly be updated on how to operate or be part of the digital workforce. Linkages, partnerships, and collaborations, they matter. So anyone you meet, your teacher, try to remember them, the speakers, the employers. Never burn your bridges with any employer. You just become a wall. No, because sometimes, this person might be in another company, and you would be applying for job there. You always make sure that you are in good terms whenever you leave a particular job. Failures, mistakes will happen, and moving forward is the most important step. You have to learn from your failures. You have to learn from your mistakes, so you don't. It doesn't become a habit that you do this always, and you have to level up your game later on. Change will happen, whether within yourself or externally. The people, the place will change. Accept it, because it's going to move you forward. Just a few slides about TIBFI. This is TIBFI when we were still doing face-to-face, but now the meetings of TIBFI is done virtually. We are 40 years old already, as I mentioned. It used to be HRAIB only, but it was very limiting in the sectors that they represented. And so now the sectors that we have are those that are actually more encompassing, as indicated in the Tourism Act that we have. Our vision is actually to have highly professional education, training, research, and development institutions that are responsive to the competency needs and workforce requirements. So we're very much involved in defining training regulation standards, competency guides, CMOs for that matter as well. These now are the roles that we play. We are the National Tourism Professional Board under the Asean MRA, as well as a recognized industry board for TESDA. So when they are issues or concerns or updates about the tourism sector, we are always tapped. And if it's not me, one of the board members actually attends it. I just want to show you that we have been addressing many of the needs, some giving leads also to some of the workers or stakeholders in tourism. We had a glimmer of hope for tourism and hospitality workers. We provided them training programs that they can do while they are maybe serving maybe less hours right now or unemployed. We also had a webinar on It's Okay Not to Be Okay. This is the first of a series on practicum where we provided, practicum options for our students. We also had trivial pursuits where we looked at health, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual wellness. And this is the soft skills that are, people are so uh, having difficulties already now with the pandemic, and we wanted to give them how they were able to address health issues, spiritual and mental issues. This was a nice, we brought the 30-minute speakers, Dr. Perry from Malaysia, Dr. Andy from Subic, and he's now based in the US actually, and Dr. Alan, who is from Australia. They actually showed us, presented some of the innovations that are being done by tourism enterprises in their part of the world. And it was nice because we saw that, there were flights to nowhere, meaning to say people who were just wanting to fly out, you would leave a certain airport, you'll fly, be served food, and then fly, come down, and it's still the same place because people were not accepting in other countries as well. Or, you're fond of eating food, let's say Thai Airways food. You miss it. They opened a restaurant already in Bangkok. And this is what we're doing. This is what we said, convergence of tourism, education, and training. We put together DOT with its initiative, actually had an MOU that was signed by DepEd, TESDA, and CHED together with TIPFI and DOT, so that we will be able to identify what are the competencies, what are the qualifications that you can have in DepEd, in TESDA, as well as in higher education. May Pasko pa rin. These are two programs that TESDA and DOT has. PAS is Progressive Accreditation System for Tourism Enterprises, and Portfolio Assessment. These are for professionals who've been working for 5 years and above who don't have a national certificate. And because now you don't have work, maybe you want to be certified, you can actually do that using the portfolio assessment mode. In case you miss it, Re-up Cross-Skilling Matters. This is about micro-credentials. You have TOEIC, you have ALAY, we have Lobster Inc., we have STR, we have American Hospitality Academy. And, micro-credentials, these are, certificates add-on, because we notice that a lot of people cannot complete their 4-year degree anymore because maybe for lack of funds or financial challenges. But you can do micro-certifications or credentials. Some are free, some will come with a fee, but it's you learn at your own pace for this. And just yesterday, yesterday, we had on-site, off-site startup, and we had Dr. Jude with us, and they presented various modes of practicum options that can be done by schools, and that was a great learning session for them. So you can, if you failed to attend any of our webinars, you can visit our website and go to the webinars page, or you can scan this QR code and you'll be brought to that, and you can watch it at your own pace. So the board members are actually represented from various organizations like HRAP, ARM, Paseos, ARME, Nurain Centro, PTAA, DOT, TESDA, and UPAIT. What's my call to action? What's in, what's out, moving forward? I always end my talk usually with a Be Hospitable acronym. And what is in? In is being healthy. You don't, just because you're not in school doesn't mean you don't have PE classes. You can walk around your village, you can do some exercises, you can eat healthy food, stay away from junk food, etc. Be open to a lot of new ideas. A lot of students are now having challenges because of the flexible learning system that was deployed most probably by the school. Not only students, maybe teachers as well, and administrators have to monitor. How do you monitor students for attendance and so on, etc. But this is, as in the words of our chairman, Chair Popoy De Vera, he said that flexible learning is here to stay. So that don't envision a world where you will go back to your school, or if you go back to the school, it will be different. It's not going to be fully packed. It's not going to be based on the allocation that you have in your space as well. Be strong. Strong means surviving this pandemic. It may take 1 year, 2 years. We're on our second year right now, but a lot of people are saying that the pandemic will last maybe until 2023. And so you've got to make sure that you don't just coop yourself at home, but do something that will be mentally stimulating, do have some social activities as well. Be patient, especially that you are doing a lot of things right now. There are expectations. If you're challenged at the moment, just advise your upline, whether it's your teacher, it's your boss, tell them, I cannot do this, etc. But if you can allow me to do this, then we will be able to find a middle ground. Be innovative. This is my favorite line, because I say that the solutions are going to be different right now, because the world that we're doing, going back to the 92-year-old friend that we had, he must have seen a lot, because if he was born 92 would be, he was born sometime in 1929 or 1929. He must have seen a lot of things. He must have seen the World War II. He must have seen the Japanese occupation. He must have experienced EDSA revolution, a new society. A lot of these things, and he's now. In his wisdom, with his years, he now has to move forward as well. And we were very happy that he was able to join us in Zoom as well. So transform yourself. Don't just be the old you. You've got to find a new person as well. Be ASEAN relevant, especially in terms of the ASEAN MRA on TP. Be bold. There are some ideas that may not be acceptable 10 years, 5 years, or 2 years ago, or 1 year ago, but might be something that can be acceptable right now. Be a lifelong learner. I cannot overemphasize. I'm still constantly learning right now. Be engaging as well. They say it's more fun in the Philippines, but transitioning in this particular LODI moment with a webinar series is very good as well. I've included my references at your service. I am putting a QR code. If you want a copy of the presentation, you can go and get the bit.ly link, or take a picture of the QR code, and you'll be able to get the PDF copy of this presentation as well. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much.